Jasper ran as fast as his legs could carry him along the stony terrain. There were houses laid on either side of the road on which he ran along. The black long-sleeved shirt he wore over a white polo was unbuttoned and it flew with the wind as he ran. He did not want to look back for fear of what lay behind him. His heart was tense and now, his breathing, fast. For each second that went, his mind seemed to inform him that his pursuers had almost caught up with him. With this thought hovering in his mind, he intensified his strides to gap his pursuer. "Stop there," a voice boomed. He heard the voice and sensed that the shout was made with reference to him, but the fear that gripped him deafened his ears to the shout. He imagined the predicament he was going to face if he was caught. Perhaps severe beating, torture, and then maybe he would be taken to the station for further prosecution. No way, he thought. As he raced in between the two fences covered with algae which stood opposite each other, he turned back briefly, quickly using the rear of his left eye to watch out for the hefty man who was chasing him. He was dressed in black shirt with a black trousers. Passers-by along the way dispersed like a clutch of spooked chickens, leaning towards the fences in surprise to let him pass. A few meters away from him, a girl clad in blue jeans with a yellow blouse who stood close to the stairs of a small old bungalow, perhaps making a phone call since the phone was close to her ear, absent-mindedly walked into the middle of the road. "Get out," Jasper shouted. His words broke out as he bumped into the girl who had just turned to notice what was happening. The force sent her crashing to the ground with a shout as her phone fell some distance from her. She sat on the ground staring at him as dazed as she could be as he ran past her without even apologizing. She wagged her head as she bit back a curse and picked up her phone. A shudder of shame loomed over her as she stood up from the sandy ground amidst the eyes that stared at her. She raised her head up as she heard footsteps of the man chasing him and wondered what was going on as the hefty man ran past her. Jasper felt bad about having to push her, but at the moment, his life, perhaps, was at stake. Doing what he did seemed like the only way out at this point in time. There was no time to show sympathy. Even if the worst happened, maybe she got injured in the course of falling down. "Stop there," the hefty man shouted. "I said stop there." Jasper heard the shout loud and clear. It sent shivers running down his spine, and so he hastened his steps. He prayed in his heart that no one would attempt to grab him or, worst-case scenario, join in the chase like the Lagos youth who were ever ready to give anybody a chase once they heard "oh." "Oh." He looked back quickly, still running, and saw that he had given the man some distance. Unlike other people who would have chased for a while and stopped if they could not catch the person involved, this man was not willing to yield. Jasper was not willing either. His mind was fixed on finding a way to escape from this ugly situation. He paused abruptly as he got close to the tarred road, which at this point was very busy. Vehicles zoomed quickly along the road. His breathing had even become faster, while his inhalation and exhalation could be noticed from his upper torso, which rose up and down as he panted. The intensity of the sun was nothing to him compared to what was on his tail. Perspiration had formed on his forehead. His shirt was getting drenched in sweat, especially the armpit region. He turned back to see the man still on his tail. Immediately, after a moment's thought on which direction to run to, he took a right turn which led into a small market. The small market situated opposite the entrance of the university was quite busy. Students, boys and girls alike, stood close to small shops which were roofed and demarcated from each other with zinc roofing sheets. They were waiting to be attended to by the market women who owned the stalls. Foodstuffs like tomatoes, okra, vegetables, rice beans, just to mention a few, could be seen displayed on the wooden tabletops. The row of small stalls which was close to the tarred road was opposite a block of buildings which were shops, and a small sandy path demarcated both of them. As he rushed into the marketplace, he ran through the path that separated the zinc stalls from the concrete shops. Boys and girls who stood along the road shifted out of the way on sighting him running towards them at full speed. Surprise grew on their faces, and soon pandemonium broke out in the market. Most of them wondered what seemed to be chasing him or why he was even running until they saw the hefty man chasing him. "Stop that boy," the man shouted, pointing towards Jasper. Many people who knew the risk involved in attempting to stop a real criminal decided against grabbing him. They simply cleared out of the way to let him pass. They could not tell if he had a gun or weapon which he could use to inflict injury on them. Jasper hoped he had not chosen a wrong route because of the many eyes that now stared curiously at him. Suddenly, a man who wore a brown apron over his brown shirt rushed out of his shop, which was a meat shop. He had heard the shout from the man to stop someone and could see the handsome-looking boy running towards his direction. He could also see the hefty man chasing him, who he presumed was the one who shouted. Like a lion laying in ambush for its prey, He leaned against the wooden stand in his shop and waited patiently for him to come closer. When the timing was right and he felt Jasper was close enough, he jumped and grabbed him. "I have caught him," the fat man shouted aloud. Jasper's heart sank into his tummy as he felt this was the end. "Oga, let go of me," he shouted as he wriggled to get himself free from the man's grip. The wriggling could be likened to an insect stuck on a trap of a Venus flytrap which wriggles, and as it does that, the leaves of this carnivorous plant tightened over it, thus squishing it. The man tightened his hand, holding him in an embrace. The more he tried to wriggle out of the grip, the more the man tightened his grip until he finally locked his fingers together. Jasper turned to see the man getting closer to him. A moment ago, he was not holding a gun, but now, he could see a small pistol in his hand. The sight of the gun gave him the chills. He could hear shouts coming from spectators watching the drama. As if energized by the sight of the gun or spurred by the shouts, he used all his might to struggle, and soon, his hand got free from the tight grip. Seeing that he could now move his arm, he punched the man on his face with all his strength. Thick red fresh blood trickled down the man's nose, but still, he won't let go. Instead he staggered backwards. Jasper clenched his fist and punched him again, this time around, aiming for his nose. The fat man screamed aloud, loosening his grip, and then held onto his nose as he staggered backwards. The hefty man had almost reached them. All he could get hold of was Jasper's shirt, which slipped from his grasp as he pushed the fat man aside. The fat man toppled and fell to the ground to continue licking his wounds. Narrow escape indeed. Then, Jasper cornered to the right and continued running. He jumped over a brown carton along his path and soon took to a windy path. He turned back and noticed that the man was still on him. After he raced the whole length of the small road, he reached a T-junction. Which road was going to lead to his escape? He wondered as he looked left and right quickly. Though it was a dicey calculation, he had soon figured that there was not much time to think, and so he rushed towards the road in his right-hand direction. He was getting tired and weak from running, but today was not the day he was going to get caught. He quickly wiped his sweaty face with his palm. Deep in his heart, he was happy for the gap he had given the man and the escape earlier. Was he not lucky that he had swift feet? At least, he could run fast. This happiness was short-lived as his face was soon smeared with a worried look as he soon noticed a wall. A high wall which ran the whole length of the compound he had run into. The fence was old-looking, judging from the ferns and mosses growing on it. He looked back. About 15 meters from him was the man still clutching his gun. What would he do? Barrage of thoughts ran through his mind, but the only feasible option was to jump over the fence before his assailant reached him. Jasper mustered courage, stretched his hand to climb the fence, but it was difficult to find a place to put his hand and foot. The green mosses and algae on the wall caused his foot to slide down. He shook his head and then shifted backwards before charging towards the fence. He jumped against the fence and this time around, was able to grab against the fence even though his leg slid down, causing him to hit his body against the wall. He still held onto his grip. He had to put up with some injuries as his body brushed against the wall. To him, those injuries were minor. "Come down here," the hefty man who had now reached the fence shouted. He had his gaze fixed on Jasper, who was some distance on the high fence as he stood by panting. He ignored the shout and continued climbing slowly. He did not know what to expect on the other side of the fence, but he presumed that it was going to be better than the present scenario. "Come down or I will shoot you," the man shouted in a coarse voice. Again, Jasper ignored it and still kept on climbing, being careful not to fall down. The man pointed the gun at him and cocked it. From where he clung onto the wall, he could hear, but he was hell-bent on escaping. Moreover, he assumed that the man who he presumed was a policeman won't shoot as the law did not give them license to shoot. The hefty man, who was now seething with rage for having to chase him this long, saw that words were not working. Force was the next point of call, he thought. He reasoned that he could not go back without evidence for all the energy he had expended. He aimed the gun at Jasper and shot. The shot was deafening, followed by a scream. His leg had been shot. The pain he felt was so excruciating that he lost his grip and soon came falling down to the ground. As he fell to the ground, he hit his head against a stone. His eyes were falling and he could feel blood gushing out from his body. His vision was now blurry even though he could still see the man standing close to him. He was weak and shortly passed out. Why was Jasper being chased? What was his offense? Thank you for following till the end of the first chapter. What do you think about the story? I'd love your comments.